Everybody in Silver Creek heard the girl before they saw her. The wagon wheels creaked to a stop outside the town jail, and a clear young voice cut through the cold morning air. It was soft, but it carried, because no one ever said those words near that jail. She stepped down from the wagon, lifted her chin, and spoke again so there was no mistake. "Please marry me." She was talking to the man behind the iron bars, the same man mothers used to scare their children into behaving. The same man even the sheriff kept chained during the night, the mountain man, the beast of Black Ridge, the one they said had killed more men than the war. Her name was Lucy Carter. She had come all the way from St. Louis. Her dress was plain blue cotton, wrinkled from the long trip. Her boots were dusty. Her hands were small and shaking just a little as she clutched a worn leather satchel. Her brown hair was pulled back, but loose strands had slipped free and framed her pale face. She looked like a girl who should be standing in a church choir, not in front of a jail. Behind the bars, Daniel Boone sat on a rough wooden bench with iron shackles around his wrists and ankles. They were chained to a bolt in the stone floor. His dark beard hid most of his face. His hair hung past his shoulders in tangled waves. His shirt was torn at the sleeve, and dried blood stained the collar near his neck. His eyes were the only clear thing about him, sharp, cold, watching her like she was a stranger who stepped too close to the edge of a cliff. The sheriff stepped between them, his hand resting on his gun. He was a big man named Sheriff Harris, with gray in his beard and years of dust and the lines on his face. "Miss, I asked you your business," he said. "This is no place for you." Lucy swallowed hard, but when she spoke, her voice did not break. "I received a letter from a man in Silver Creek," she said. "A man looking for a wife. He paid my way with the marriage broker. His name was Daniel Boone." At that, the whole room seemed to freeze. The deputy stopped shuffling papers. A drunk sleeping at the back bench lifted his head and stared. The sheriff's fingers tightened on his belt. Behind the bars, the chained man did not move. He just kept watching her. "Miss," Sheriff Harris said slowly, "there has been a mistake. That man is facing the hangman. You must have the wrong Daniel." Lucy pulled a folded paper from her satchel. The edges were soft from how many times she had read it. Her voice trembled for the first time as she read. "My name is Daniel Boone. I am a trapper and hunter in the Colorado mountains. Life is hard and lonely here. I am not a gentleman, but I am an honest one. If you can stand the cold and the quiet, if you want a home more than fancy dresses, then I will work till my hands bleed to keep you safe." Quote, she looked up, eyes bright. "He signed it," she said. "Daniel Boone, Silver Creek, Colorado." A low sound came from inside the cell, like a growl that never fully formed. Daniel shifted his chains and stood up to his full height. He was taller than everyone in the room. The iron links rattled against the floor as he stepped toward the bars. "That is my letter," Daniel said. His voice was rough, from days without water that was not stale and nights without sleep. "I wrote it." For the first time, Lucy met his eyes. Up close, she could see the scar that cut across his cheek, the deep lines around his mouth, the fresh bruise on his jaw. She could also see something no one had mentioned in any story: tiredness, a kind of sorrow that sat heavy behind his gaze. "I came for you," she said in a quiet, steady tone. "I came to be your wife." The sheriff cursed under his breath. "Miss, this man killed 3 miners in a saloon brawl," Harris said. "He nearly tore one apart with his bare hands. He is not taking a wife. He is taking the rope." Lucy flinched, but she kept her eyes on Daniel. "Is it true?" she asked him. "Did you kill them?" Quote, the room waited. Even the dust hanging in the sunlight seemed to pause. Daniel stared at her, and for a moment it looked like he would say nothing. Then his shoulders lifted once, like the weight on them was almost too much. "I killed them," he said, "but not the way they tell it." The deputy snorted. "It is enough," the deputy muttered. "Dead is dead." Lucy took a step closer to the bars, close enough now to smell the iron and sweat and the faint pine scent still clinging to his clothes from the mountains. "Why did you write for a bride?" "If you thought you would hang," she asked. Daniel looked away. His jaw worked as if he were chewing on words he did not want to spit out. "When I wrote," he said, "I was still free, still in my cabin in Black Ridge. I wanted someone to share the silence with. Someone who would not scream at every wolf howl. Someone who did not mind a man with bloody hands so long as they were working hands." He looked back at her, anger flickering now. "But the sheriff came before you did," he said. "The miners I killed had brothers. Those brothers wanted blood. Now I sit in a cage, and you have wasted your trip. Go back, girl. Take the next wagon east. There is nothing here for you." Lucy's throat tightened. She thought of the life she had left behind. A boarding house with thin walls, men who stared too long, a job in a laundry where hot steam burned her hands and the owner slapped girls who worked too slow. She thought of the broker counting money and saying, "You are lucky, Miss Carter. A man who can pay your way across the country wants you." She had burned every bridge behind her when she stepped on that train. She had no ticket back, no home waiting, no one who would even notice if she never returned. "If you hang," she said, "what happens to me?" No one answered. The sheriff shifted uncomfortably. "That is not my problem," he said after a moment. "The law is the law. The trial is set for next week. Judge is coming in from Denver. Until then, this man stays in chains." Lucy felt a hot sting behind her eyes, but she refused to cry in front of these men. She drew in a slow breath and turned again to Daniel. "Did you write any other letters?" she asked. "To any other women?" Quote, "No," he said. "Did you lie in your letter to me?" "No." "Then I am your bride," Lucy said. "Even if the law never lets us stand in a church." The sheriff made a sound like a laugh and a cough at the same time. "Miss, you cannot marry a man who is going to hang," he said. Lucy straightened her shoulders. Her voice came out stronger than before, echoing in the small jail. "Then do not hang him," she said. "I will not leave. I will stay in this town. I will visit him every day, and I will prove he should not die." Daniel stared at her like she had spoken madness. The deputy shook his head. The sheriff opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. Something in Lucy's eyes stopped him. Outside, church bells began to ring for the noon hour. The sound carried through the open window and washed over the tense silence inside. Lucy stepped right up to the bars, her small fingers curling around the cold iron. She looked straight into the eyes of the man everyone feared. "Daniel Boone," she said, her voice soft but unshaken, "I came to be your wife. And I am not leaving you to die alone." For the first time, Daniel's mask cracked. A flash of pain crossed his face, followed by something even more dangerous than anger. Hope. The sheriff saw it and felt a shiver run down his spine. He had seen men fight hopeless battles, and men go to the rope with curses on their lips, but he had never seen a girl walk straight up to a death sentence and ask it to marry her. "Miss Carter," he said quietly, "you have no idea what you are getting yourself into." Lucy did not look away from Daniel. "Yes," she whispered, "I think I do." And in that moment, as the bells faded and the mountain wind pushed against the windows, 2 lives took a turn no one in Silver Creek could have expected. The first night, Lucy slept in a tiny room above the saloon. The mattress was lumpy, the walls thin, and loud piano music banged through the boards. Men shouted downstairs. Glass broke. Someone laughed too loud, and then started to cry. She lay on her back and stared at the cracked ceiling, thinking about iron bars and a pair of tired gray eyes staring back at her. By morning, the whole town knew. The mail-order bride had come for the caged mountain man. Folks stepped aside when she walked down the street. Some stared with pity, some with disgust, and some with the curious interest people always had for trouble that was not theirs. When Lucy pushed open the jail door, the room smelled like stale coffee and cold ashes. The sheriff sat at his desk, hat tipped low, boots up, pretending not to watch the door. Daniel sat where she had left him, chains tight, eyes on the floor. "You came back," he said, sounding almost surprised. "I said I would," she answered. She set a small basket on the sheriff's desk. "I brought fresh bread from the cafe and coffee," she said, "for both of you. And some stew for Daniel, if you will let him have it." Sheriff Harris studied her for a long second, then gave a small nod. "You keep this up, Miss Carter," he said, "and folks will talk even more than they already are." "They already talk," Lucy said. "Might as well give them something true to say." The sheriff grunted. He unlocked the door to the cell and slid the plate and tin cup inside, careful to keep the chain between them. Daniel's fingers brushed the sheriff's as he took the food, and Harris pulled back like he had touched a hot stove. Lucy moved closer, hands folded. "I need to know what really happened," she said. "Every detail. No one else will tell me the whole story. They only say you are a monster." Daniel chewed, slowly, watching her over the edge of the tin cup. "What does it matter?" he asked. "The judge will believe the miners. The town will cheer when I swing." "It matters to me," she said, "because I gave up my whole life to come to you. I refuse to believe I crossed half this country to stand beside a man who kills for fun." Something flickered in his eyes. Respect. Maybe even guilt. He set the empty cup down and leaned his back against the stone wall. The chains clinked. "They were drunk," he began. "The 3 miners. It was at the Red Lantern. They had won big at cards and were loud about it. I came in to sell pelts. I had been in the mountains for weeks. I wanted a hot meal, a drink, and a bed that was not made of pine needles." His voice had a slow rhythm, like a man who did not talk much but remembered every word when he did. "There is a girl there," he said, "or was, Maggie. She serves drinks and tries to smile when men grab her. That night they grabbed too hard. One of them pulled her onto his lap when she tried to pass. She told him to stop. He laughed and put his hand under her skirt. She slapped him. He hit her." Lucy winced. "I was close enough to see the fear in her eyes," Daniel said. "I told him to let her go. He called me mountain trash. He told me to keep my nose in my own cup, or he would cut it off for me." He looked down at his hands, turning them slowly. "I have done bad things," he said. "I have killed to survive. I have killed in anger. I know what my temper really is. So I tried to walk away. I took my plate and moved to the other end of the bar." He lifted his gaze back to Lucy. "Then I heard her cry out," he said. "He had her by the hair." His friend had his hand over her mouth. The third had his belt undone. The rest of the room looked away, so I did not walk away a second time. His jaw tightened. "I broke a bottle over the first man's head," he said, "hit the second with a chair. The third came at me with a knife. I took it from him and used it. By the time it was over, Maggie was shaking in the corner, and 3 men were bleeding on the floor. 2 died there. The third died the next day. The law decided that was murder." Lucy swallowed, her throat dry. "Where is Maggie now?" she asked. "Will she speak for you?" Daniel's eyes darkened. "Gone," he said. "Packed up that same night. Sheriff says the brothers paid her to leave town. She was trouble for them either way." Lucy turned to the sheriff. He had gone, still behind his desk, his face unreadable. "Is that true?" she asked. Harris sighed and scratched his beard. "More or less," he said. "Thing is, Miss Carter, those miners were not just any miners. They were tied to big money. The brothers own half the claim outside town. They pay for the judge, the jail, this badge. No one will speak against them and live easy." "So you know he was defending that girl," Lucy said. "I know what I saw when I got there," Harris replied. 3 men dead or dying, and Daniel Boone standing over them with blood on his hands. He did not run. He did not try to hide. He just looked at me and held out his wrists. "I told you I killed them," Daniel said quietly. "The why does not matter to men who care more for gold than for girls." Lucy felt anger rise in her chest, hot and bright. "If the girl is gone, I will find someone else," she said. "There must be someone who saw. The barkeep, the piano player, the women upstairs. Someone." "You will only make enemies you cannot fight," the sheriff warned. Lucy lifted her chin. "I did not come all this way to watch him die for protecting someone," she said. "If that is a crime in this town, then it is the town that should be caged." For the next days, she moved through Silver Creek like a small storm. She went to the Red Lantern and spoke to the owner, a tired man with a stained apron who kept drying the same glass. He claimed he had seen nothing. She spoke to the piano player, who looked away and said his job was to play, not to remember. She spoke to the other girls, but they backed away, eyes full of fear. Someone had gotten to them, someone with money and threats. At night, she returned to the jail, bringing food, blankets, and stories from the town. Daniel listened in silence at first. Slowly, he began to ask questions. "Are they treating you decent at the saloon?" he asked one evening. "The owner keeps hands off," she said. "He is scared of what you might do if I tell you otherwise." A corner of his mouth twitched. "Good," he said. She told him about the train ride, about losing her parents to sickness back in Missouri, about working in a laundry so hot the air felt like water, about how, when his letter had come, it felt like a rope thrown to someone caught in a river. "You wrote that you were not a gentleman," she said softly. "But you also wrote that you were an honest one. I decided I could live with one if I could trust the other." He looked at her through the bars, something raw and unguarded in his eyes. "No one has ever crossed a country for me," he said. "Most days I am surprised when they let me cross a street." Their hands almost touched on the bars before he pulled his back, chains clinking. On the fourth day, a fancy carriage rolled into town, wheels shining, horses groomed to a shine. The brothers had arrived. Men stepped out in fine coats and polished boots, faces hard and handsome in a cold way. They went straight to the sheriff's office. Lucy watched from across the street as the taller brother, Charles Lang, smiled a thin smile at Sheriff Harris and shook his hand like they were friends at a church picnic. That evening, as the sky turned purple over the mountains, Lucy walked into the quiet jail and felt the air change. The sheriff did not look up. Daniel's jaw was set. "What happened?" she asked. "The judge is coming early," Harris said, voice flat. "Trial is tomorrow morning." Lucy's heart lurched. "Tomorrow?" she echoed. "But I have not found anyone to speak for him." "That is the idea," Daniel said. "They want this done before anyone grows a conscience." Sheriff Harris rubbed his temples. "Miss Carter, I told you this town belongs to men with money," he said. "Lang and his brother were clear. They want a quick trial, a quick hanging, and no trouble from some girl who knows nothing of our ways." Lucy stepped closer to Daniel's cell, her breath coming fast. "No," she said. "No, I will not let them do this. If the judge will not hear the truth willingly, then I will make him hear it." "And how will you do that?" Daniel asked quietly. "Break these chains? March me into the mountains?" She turned to the sheriff, eyes blazing. "Then unlock this door," she said to Harris. "Let him out before they kill an innocent man." The sheriff surged to his feet, anger and fear fighting in his face. "Enough," he snapped. "I uphold the law. I am not about to throw my job and my life away for a stranger." Lucy stared at him, then at Daniel, then at the heavy iron key ring hanging on a hook behind the desk. Her mind raced. She felt something inside her harden, a line she had never thought she would cross. "If the law is blind," she whispered, more to herself than to them, "then someone has to open its eyes." She turned and walked out into the night, the cold mountain wind slapping her cheeks. Behind her, the jail door swung shut with a heavy thud. Neither the sheriff nor Daniel saw her when she slipped back much later, in the darkest part of the night, skirts tucked up, boots silent on the wooden floor, her eyes fixed on the glint of iron keys hanging in the dim light. The jail was dark except for a single oil lamp low on the sheriff's desk. Its weak yellow light threw long shadows across the floor. Outside, the town was quiet. Only the wind moved, slipping under doors and through gaps in the walls. Lucy eased the door open, heart thudding. She slipped inside, holding her breath. The sheriff sat, slumped in his chair, hat over his face, like a man lost in deep sleep. The keys hung on the hook behind him, dull and heavy. She could hear the clink of chains from the cell. Daniel had heard the door. "Lucy," he whispered, his voice rough. "What are you doing here?" She did not answer. She tiptoed toward the desk, skirts lifted so they would not rustle. Her hand shook as she reached for the keyring. The cold iron pressed into her palm. "Stop," Daniel said, louder this time. "Do not do this." She turned, eyes bright in the dim light. "If I do nothing, they kill you in a few hours," she said. "If I take you out now, you have a chance. We can run to the mountains. You wrote that you live where no one dares to follow." The chains rattled as he moved closer to the bars. "And you?" he asked. "Do you think they will just let you ride out with me? They will call you a thief. They will say you helped a killer escape. You will spend your life running from the very law that should have protected you." "I am already alone," she said. "I have no one in this world but you. If I can keep you breathing, that is enough." A low sigh came from the sheriff's chair. "You two sure picked a loud night to plan a jailbreak," Sheriff Harris said. Lucy froze. The sheriff pushed his hat back and stood, shoulders stiff, eyes tired. His gun was in his hand, though she had not seen him reach for it. "Put the keys down, Miss Carter," he said quietly, slow and gentle. Her fingers tightened around the ring. For a heartbeat, she thought about running for the door. But she saw the gun, saw the sorrow in Harris's eyes, and she knew she could not outrun a bullet. She set the keys on the desk. Her chin trembled, but she lifted it anyway. "Are you going to arrest me too?" she asked. "For caring if a man dies for doing the right thing." The sheriff's jaw worked. "I have worn this badge for 20 years, he said. "I have buried friends in this dirt. I have told widows their husbands are not coming home. I have watched men hang and told myself the law is clean, even when my hands did not feel that way." He looked at Daniel, then back at Lucy. "This town runs on the Lang brothers' money," he said, "but it lives on the backs of people like you, people who work and pray and hope the rich remember their names. When you walked in here and said you would prove he did not deserve the rope, I thought you were foolish. Maybe I still do. But tonight, when I saw you reach for those keys, I realized something." "What?" Lucy whispered. "That the law is not worth much if the only people it protects are men with full pockets," he said. "I cannot throw away this badge, Miss Carter, but I can make sure the judge hears every word that needs saying." He slid the gun back into its holster, then took the keys and walked to the cell. The metal clinked as he unlocked the small door set into the bars. He did not open it wide, only enough to slide Daniel's chains along the bolt. "I am not setting you free," he said to Daniel, "but I am taking off these shackles in the courtroom. I will stand up and say what I know, even if it costs me." "You think that will stop the Langs?" Daniel asked. "No," Harris said. "That is why I sent a rider 3 nights ago." Lucy blinked. "A rider?" she asked. The sheriff nodded. "Back when you were racing around town asking questions, the piano player let slip where that girl Maggie might have run to," he said. "There is a camp 2 days, ride away. I did not tell you. If she never came back, I did not want to break what little hope you had left." Quote. Lucy's hands flew to her mouth. "You mean she might be here?" she whispered. "She might," Harris said, "if she chose to come. I cannot force a witness. All I could do was send word and pray she still has enough fight left to do what is right." He stepped back from the cell. "Go home, Miss Carter," he said. "Get an hour of sleep if you can. Tomorrow will be hard. But I promise you this. I will not let them rush that trial like a cheap show. You will speak. He will speak. And if Maggie walks through that door, then so help me, this whole town will hear her." Lucy stared at him, tears finally spilling over. "Thank you," she said. "Do not thank me yet," he muttered. "You may hate me by noon." Morning came gray and cold. The town gathered in the small wooden courthouse, boots scuffing on the floor, voices low and tense. The Lang brothers sat near the front in fine coats, their lawyer beside them flipping through neat papers. The judge from Denver, a thin man with sharp eyes, took his seat behind the rough plank desk. Daniel was led in without shackles, only iron cuffs on his wrists. He walked steady, back straight, though Lucy could see the strain in his face. She sat on a bench near the front, hands folded tight in her lap. "Court is now in session," the judge said. "The case of the territory versus Daniel Boone." The Langs, lawyer, spoke first. He painted the miners as hard-working men of good standing, cut down by a savage with a temper. He did not say one word about Maggie. He spoke of blood on the floor, of knives and broken bones, of a town that had to be kept safe. Then it was the sheriff's turn. Harris stood, hat in his hands. "I came into the Red Lantern after the fight," he said. "What I saw was 3 men on the floor, yes. But I also saw a girl in the corner with her dress torn and her face bruised. I saw fear in her eyes that did not come from the man who stopped the beating." The judge frowned. "Are you saying those miners were attacking the girl?" he asked. "I am saying what I saw," Harris replied. "And I am saying that when I told Daniel Boone to hand over his knife, he did not run. He looked at that girl and then at me and held out the blade like a man who knows what he did and is willing to stand for it. He killed them. That is true. Why he did it is the whole story." Murmurs rose in the room. The Lang brothers exchanged quick, cold looks. Lucy's heart pounded when the judge finally turned to her. "You are the mail-order bride, Miss Carter?" he asked. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. Her voice shook for 2 words, then steadied. "You wish to speak for this man," he said. "I wish to speak for the truth," she answered. She told them everything. She spoke of the letter that had reached her in St. Louis, of the honest words in it, of a mountain man who did not pretend to be gentle but promised to be true. She spoke of the long ride west, of the looks cast her way when folks learned who she came for. She told them how no one in town would speak up because the miners' brothers held their wages and their roofs, how girls at the saloon looked away in fear, how Daniel never lied to her, not once, even when it would have been easy. "I did not come here for a rich man," she said, voice clear in the still room. "I came because I believed a man who risked his life trapping in the snow would also work his whole life to protect a woman under his roof. I will not pretend he is soft, but I know in my heart he is not cruel." The judge watched her, fingers steepled. "And if this court finds him guilty," he asked, "what will become of you then, Miss Carter?" Lucy swallowed. "Then I will still stand here and say he did not deserve the rope," she said. "And I will live with the knowledge that this town hanged the only man who ever tried to stand between a woman and a monster." Silence followed her words, thick and heavy. Then the back doors of the courtroom banged open. Heads turned, boots scraped. A woman stepped inside, hat in her hands, hair pulled back, eyes wide but steady. Maggie. Her cheek still carried a faint yellow mark where a bruise had faded. Her dress was worn but clean. She clutched a small bundle at her chest, like it was a shield. "Your Honor," she called, voice shaking, "I need to speak." The Lang brothers went pale. One half rose from his seat. The judge lifted a hand. "Do you have knowledge of that night at the Red Lantern?" he asked. Maggie nodded. "I was the one they dragged onto their laps," she said. "I was the one they hit, and I am the one that man saved." She pointed at Daniel. Every eye followed her finger. She told her story in simple words. The grab, the slap, the belt undone, the hand over her mouth. She spoke of the look on the miners' faces, like they owned her. She spoke of Daniel's warning, of how he tried to walk away, then came back when they would not stop. "Those men were going to hurt me," she said, "worse than hurt me. No one else would step in, only him. If he had not, I would not be standing here." She looked at the Lang brothers with open fear and anger, then back at the judge. "They paid me to leave," she said, "told me to keep my mouth shut or I would find trouble. I took the money. I was tired and scared. But when that rider came and said he was going to hang, I could not sit in some camp and let it happen." The judge leaned back, eyes sharp. He was quiet for a long moment. "This court will recess," he said at last. "I need time to consider the weight of this witness." The room buzzed as people stood. The Lang brothers argued in harsh whispers with their lawyer. Maggie sank onto the bench beside Lucy, shoulders shaking. Lucy took her hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "I should have come sooner," Maggie said. "He is the only man who ever took a beating, so I would not have to." When the judge returned, the room fell silent again. He looked older somehow, the lines on his face deeper. "Daniel Boone," he said, "you confessed to killing 3 men. That is a grave thing. But the law also knows self-defense and the defense of others. With the sheriff's statement and the witness of this young woman, I cannot in good conscience call this cold-blooded murder." He glanced at the Lang brothers. "There are other charges here," he went on. "Drunken assault, attempted violation. None of them can be laid upon the dead, so this court will lay them upon their name. Your brothers were not saints, Mr. Lang. They were men who used their power to harm. This territory will not hang the only man who stood in their way." Lucy pressed her hands to her mouth. "So the judge said I dismiss the charge of murder against Daniel Boone." The room exploded into noise. Some cheered, some cursed under their breath. The Lang brothers stormed out, faces dark. Daniel stood very still, as if afraid that if he moved, the words might vanish. "The court is adjourned," the judge said. The sheriff turned to Daniel, a small, tired smile on his face. "Looks like you get your mountains back," he said. He unlocked the cuffs with a final click. The iron fell away. Daniel stepped out into the sunlight with Lucy beside him. The air felt strange on his bare wrists. People watched from porches and windows. Some looked angry, some looked ashamed, some looked like they were seeing him for the first time. Lucy stood in front of him, eyes shining. "So," she said softly, "you are free." He looked down at her, rough hands hanging useless at his sides for a moment. Then he reached out, careful, like she was something fragile and precious. "I wrote a letter to a stranger asking her to live in the cold with me," he said. "I thought it was the most foolish thing I had ever done. But you came. You walked into my cage when everyone else walked away. I do not know how to be gentle, Lucy, but I know I cannot go back to those mountains without you now." She smiled through her tears. "You are asking me again," she said, "without bars between us this time." He nodded. "Yes," he said. "Please marry me." The same words she had once spoken to iron bars now hung in the open air between them, but there was no fear in them now, only hope. Lucy laughed, a small wet sound that caught in her chest. "I already did in my heart the day I stepped off that wagon," she said. "But I will say it out loud so this town hears it." She took his hand. "Yes," she said, "I will marry you." Later that afternoon, with the mountains standing tall in the distance and the small church bell ringing clear, a preacher spoke simple words over them. The sheriff stood as witness. Maggie watched from a back pew, hands folded. A few townsfolk slipped in and sat quietly, guilt and curiosity written on their faces. When it was done, Daniel and Lucy rode out of Silver Creek on a single wagon, heading toward Black Ridge and the cabin that waited there. The wind was cold, but Lucy leaned against his shoulder and felt warm. Behind them, the town would go on with its gossip and its work, its mining and its music. But the story of the mail-order bride who begged the caged mountain man to marry her, and the day he walked free because she would not let go, would live longer than any gold vein. High in the mountains, in a small cabin that smelled of pine and wood smoke, a man once feared by everyone learned how to say soft words at the door. And a woman who had crossed a country alone finally had a home where no one could ever send her away again.